What if someone identifies as cat gender? Is it transphobic not to consider that valid? I think that transphobia and trans issues are different from otherkin or xenogender issues. You know? I think they're different things. And I know this because I know a ton of people who are totally on board with trans people and not on board with helicopter gender or whatever, okay? Now, if you want to argue it's shitty to not, like, validate xenogender people, you can do that. But I think it's inappropriate to say then that, like, you're transphobic for not doing it. You know what I mean? Because that also kind of throws trans people under the bus as well. Because the last thing I want to have to defend is people coming at me saying, hey, notice how on social media people are saying you are transphobic unless you say that people are actually helicopters. And then it's like, because 4 years ago, the argument was trans people aren't identifying as helicopters. They're doing so within the gender spectrum, non-binary, woman, man, whatever. And they're doing so for and then, like, now we have the xenogender thing, and it's like helicopter gender, dream gender, you know? And it's like, I'm not necessarily saying that your behavior or your identification is invalid. I'm only saying that I don't think having reservations against it is the same as having reservations against trans people. And also, it doesn't escape my attention that the vast majority of xenogender stuff seems to come from teenagers on Tumblr, which suggests to me that this might not be so much a giant civil rights push as it is like just a modern political dynamic infused awkward self recognition phase. Does that make any sense? That's not to say it's all invalid. I'm just saying. Do people using its pronouns fall in this category too? No. Pronouns are pronouns. If a person wants you to call them its or whatever, I mean, it's weird, but like, okay. I don't know. People call me Vaush. You know that's not my real name, right? I mean, my new enlightened position on almost all gender stuff is that I really don't give a fuck, you know? I do not give a shit. Like, identify as whatever, I do not give a fuck. I'm just here to preserve basic human rights. If you want to, and I want to be clear, if you identify as a helicopter or whatever, I think you're fucking weird, and I don't get it. But you have a right to be weird in a way that I don't get, okay? That's your God-given American right, okay? Now, am I going to, like, go out to bat defending the epistemic ideology behind that behavior? Maybe not, but like the worst I'll say is like, it's weird, but whatever, you know. Well, I don't know. I don't think they're necessarily hurting anyone. Sometimes their advocacy can be harmful, though. That is true. When they conflate stuff like that with trans issues, I feel like that can be a problem. But that's not the actual behavior. That's just the way they advocate for it, and I get the similarity, at least aesthetically, so you know what I mean? Don't we have this convo every other week with Chat Lamau? No, I haven't had this convo with Chat in a while, actually. And I'm happy to be having it now because I feel like my opinions on this have evolved a little bit, which I'm happy with. Can rigid sexualities be bad? I don't know what you mean by, like, rigid sexualities. What about Xenos gender? Do we purge them for the Emperor? Yeah, of course. When the Imperium of when the Age of Strife begins, obviously we're going to have a rough time, you know? Milo Stewart brought you up in a recent video about how you apparently thought they, them pronouns are inherently less harmful to say to a trans person, even if they go by specific pronouns. Wait, I just want to clarify that, okay? My clarification on that is this, okay? They, them are not gendered pronouns. They are explicitly non-gendered pronouns. That is the point, okay? So if you say a person is they or is them, I don't think that's transphobic or misgendering. The problem is if you persistently do this in an effort to avoid using their chosen pronouns. But the act in itself is not definitively or inherently transphobic. I fundamentally reject that. Because if you believe that's the case, then you believe that they, them is a gendered set of pronouns, which you are then misgendering people over. But in practice, they, them refers to everyone, you know? Like, let me give you an example. The term partner is a gender-neutral way of referring to somebody's significant other, right? But if you were a gay dude and you had a boyfriend and your parents kept saying, oh yeah, my son's partner, even though the use of the term partner is not itself a misgendering or a misreference to your boyfriend, the fact that they're unwilling to actually acknowledge that it's a boyfriend by persistently, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Now, for me personally, I use they, them all the time. Vermin, can you confirm this? I use they, them with people who I know are cis, who I know are binary, all the time. And I do it because when I stumble over my words, I would much rather do so saying they, them than getting somebody's pronouns wrong. I misspeak so often that sometimes I will call trans people they, them because I know there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that I would transpose he and she, his and her, just by habit, and then I would be in trouble. So if I go by they, them, I can't stumble in a way that'll get me canceled. Now, that is not me attempting to avoid anyone's gender pronouns. Try harder then. I don't think it's a matter of trying harder, and I think that's a bad attitude to go about it. What I'm illustrating is that there are sometimes invocations of they, them that are fine and not like bigoted or anything, you know? Because I would have done this even if I only had cis people in my life. I would have done this probably if I was born in like the 1950s too. It's not a matter of trying harder, and I don't think that I have to use they, them less because trans people are in my life. It's just a quirk of how I tend to speak. However, when I'm feeling on my A game and I'm feeling really confident that I'm not gonna misspeak, yeah, I'll call people by their pronouns. You know, I have like a look. I have a lot of trans friends. Okay, I haven't gotten any complaints, so shut the fuck up. I think you should amend your definition to say a man is a person who genuinely believes they are a man. Genuine solves the edge case of people like Lauren Southern, who legally became a man a few days ago to epically own the transgenders. And 2, identity sounds like an external statement, but you want to focus on internal desires. Well, I could say it's a label that a person sincerely applies to themselves to affect internal and external relations. You know, that the sincerity would be necessary. You know, yeah, no, I mean I can refine it with time. Yeah, though again, definitions can never really be holistic. Sincerity isn't a good measure. Well, yeah, sincerity is an empirically unverifiable measure, which is the main problem, you know? Like, here's an example I see people getting a ruckus over on Twitter, okay? Destiny identifies as non-binary, and he, him, non-binary, but he did so in the most incredibly disingenuous way possible. He was like, I'm going to identify as non-binary to own the lefties because I'll be trans, and then I'll get to say whatever I want about trans people because I'll be trans. They won't be able to hit me, you know, they won't be able to stop me, and I'll use my extra social credit points by being trans. Blah, blah. So this is an incredibly disingenuous way of handling the situation. However, still non-binary. I mean, you can argue you want as much as you want about other people's degrees of apparent sincerity, but it feels like a waste of time, you know? Like, what good comes out of that? Is Destiny non-binary? Yes.